Okay, welcome to SDE Skills weekly mock interview session. So today Becca will be interviewing Pankaj. So Becca, you can take over.
Thanks, Daniel. Hi, Pankaj.
Hi, Becca.
Before we go into the actual coding interview, I'd maybe ask you if you could introduce yourself and maybe talk about what's your proudest accomplishment so far, given your role as a student or a worker.
Becca. I have been working for almost 5 years now, and primarily I code in C++. And accomplishment-wise, like I have delivered multiple projects time to time, and I think it's a normal setup. I'm in the automotive industry. We design software for cars, and that's yeah.
Okay. All right, moving forward. So, you said your programming language that you'll be coding in is C++. How would you rate yourself on your knowledge of C++? Because you've been working for 5 years.
I will rate myself like on a scale of 10, around 5.
Oh, okay. And what do you feel is keeping you from higher rating? What do you think you need to master more about the language?
There are lots of stuff that can be learned yet. Yeah.
Do you know what some of that stuff is?
Pardon me?
Could you like maybe enumerate some of that stuff? I'm not from a C++ background, so I was trying to understand.
Yeah, so with C++ now, they release lots of new things for every in every 3 years. They're releasing new standards. Lots of new things are being added to C++. So yeah, it's really difficult to be updated with the language itself. So yeah, so there are so many different things right now to be learned there.
Okay, are these things like libraries which you are talking about, or different language constructs?
Even with the language itself, they're adding new things. Like if you talk about 2020, they are coming up with contracts, coroutines. They are coming up with updating the thread library itself, concurrency updates. So there are really lots of new things that can be learned.
Oh, okay, that's great. Yeah, okay. So we move forward to your coding problem now. We'll start with this question. So suppose, so you know what parentheses is, right? And you know what a well-formed parentheses would be.
Mm-hmm.
So if I give you a number, like say 2,
Okay.
and I ask you to generate a string which has parentheses of that number. So if I say 2, that means I'm not giving you like 2 pairs of parentheses, okay? You get these symbols. And I want you to generate, so like, these would be 4, right? Because like 2 parentheses, 2 pairs of parentheses, and I want you to generate strings in which, like rearranging those parentheses in which they are all valid combinations. So how would you do it for if your integer I give you as 2 pairs of parentheses?
Okay, just to understand the question. So you will give me some numbers, say 5 or 6, say for example 2, and that 2 means I'll have 2 pairs of parentheses like this, and I have to form a well-formed string from those 2 pairs of parentheses. So one can be this and another can be like this, right?
Yeah, and if it was 3, what would your answer then be?
Yeah, so I need to return all the well-formed strings in a list, or only the number of
You'd be required to return a list of the strings. Yeah.
Okay, so return type would be a list of strings. Okay, and what was your question before?
Question before.
You
Yeah, I
said.
was asking you for n is equal to 3, what would the answer be? If you
Oh,
could
okay.
just...
So if n is 3, that means I have something like this. Another can be right, this, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
So I
you're
think
familiar with what's a valid string, and something that would be invalid would, what would you say would be an invalid one, and one in which?
invalid can be like something like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
Invalid.
Yeah. Okay. So would you go ahead with coding this?
So I have to generate all the valid strings, and the
Yeah.
validity holds if okay, for all these strings, what is happening if I move from left to right? I can keep a count of open and close braces.
Okay.
That how many open braces and how many closed braces, and what should be, and if the count of open braces are more than closed, right? So I can say that I'm at the right state, and I can always form a valid string from there.
Okay.
Right.
Is it
Yeah.
always only greater?
Yeah. Let me think. So yeah. I think yeah. So what can happen? It's kind of a recursion where I always have a choice. So suppose that I'm at position I, and I can fill this position with two options, whether I can place a open bracket or a closed bracket, right? I have
Yeah.
two options. And
Yeah.
and I have to make sure like when to put this closing bracket. And the condition would be for closing bracket if I have count open count more than the closing bracket used, so I can always put a closing bracket. For example, so initially, so let's talk about n equals to 3. So initially, I use a open bracket because closing bracket is 0. And now I
Yeah.
have option. Either I can go with this or I can use this, right? Here now the
Yeah.
count is same, so I am forced to use a open bracket. But here I have two choices. I can either go with this option or this option, right? Let's go back again. Here, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Continue. Yeah. You're right.
Okay, so and here I can use, again, I'm forced to use closing bracket. Here, because I'm going with N3, then I have no option but using closing brackets. Okay, but here, I have two options. I can close this or I can use another open bracket, right? Here I am forced to use this, and here here I can use, I have used all the three open brackets. So, okay.
In 36, line 36, you said you'd be forced to use a closing braces. Remember?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I did mistake from first here. I still can form two options. So here,
Yeah, you still got
yeah, so here it's not always like I have two options, one this and another, yeah, like this. And here,
yeah.
then next would be
That
this, and yeah, so again, yeah, five. I think, yeah, so that would be my algorithm. I'll just go one by one for every position and place both the options, and I will discard. I will discard if discard closing, like discard open bracket if the open bracket used if they are more than close.
okay.
So sorry,
Great.
if they are less than. I mean, yeah. If the I have you I like okay, so I'll discard. So this is the good condition. This is the good condition. Yeah. I will discard if the closing bracket use are more than or equal to open bracket.
You will discard what?
So I'm saying that at any position here, I have two options, and I'll go with both, and I will discard this condition if this condition doesn't hold.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, okay. And so
Yep.
if I were to give you a scenario where it was, um, would you add a close braces in the next one?
Yeah. In fact, I'll go with both the options if n is more than 2.
So I think it's better if you go ahead and code it because then we'll understand it with your variables as well.
Okay.
Your approach is fine right now. Yeah.
Okay. So I can have a function. String array, and input is n, right? So this is the signature. I just so this will be I'll call this recursively, so I better use answer as a parameter. So my first condition is and this is n, and I can also use position. Oh, let's use open count, close count. Yeah, and the way I can use this method, something like generate this. Right, so this is how I can use this, and I can print. Yeah. So now this will be the main part, what I was talking to you before, and yeah. So what should be the condition uh, if I have used all the open and close brackets? So my base condition can be if open, I will simply return base condition. And for recursive call, what can be done? So one option is always to put a open bracket. Temporary string. Close. Because here I have used one of the open brackets, so I'll increase the open count. My current will be this. And second option can be if I can definitely use this thing. Close also. And here I can print the answer result. So just let me print this also. Use some fonts. Okay, so what is happening here? So if we call for n equals to 3, so initial call would be, actually I'll call it for gen helper for 0, 0. right? And initially my current is empty because I have not used any of the brackets, and result is also a empty vector. Here I'll say that, okay, they are not equal. I'll not go inside in this condition, and here open is less than 3, yes, so I will start with this thing. I'll put a open bracket. So this should lead to 2. First call will be chain helper. So 1, 0. Now this will open this. And here, both are 0, so this will be false. Open is not greater than close, so I will not enter into this condition. So yeah, so this will generate only this one, and then it will recursively call. So here, for 1, I say, okay, 1 is still less than 3, so it can generate. And let's do for 2 first. 1 is still less than 2, then it will be then help, calls helper for 2, 0, to open brackets, and result is still empty, right? But here, open is 1 and close is 0, so this is valid condition. So we know that we can place one closing bracket also here. So we will call this condition also. So here open is 1, close is 1, and my current string is this, something like this. Yep. What will happen for this call? Now here, open is not less than n now. That means because I've used all the open brackets. It's equal to n. So I will not enter to this condition at line 24, but line 29 still holds true. So that means I'll just place closing bracket here. So this line 10 will result into 2 recursive calls. One will be 2, 1. This. Right, and this will again recursively generate 2, 2. And what will happen here? This will be my base condition. So now both open close equals to n. So then I will put this generated string into the result vector. So here it will be terminating condition. So my result vector will be like this. Yeah. Then here what will happen? Yeah, again, I'll have, because both are equal. Line 32 will not be true. Then only line 27 holds true. So then I will just call, it should call only this condition, 2, 1. Yeah, something like this. And yeah, Becca, are you with me?
Yeah, Pankaj, I am. Yeah. It's
So,
going great.
so this is also again. Yep, and this would end then terminate here with one string. Yep, and another one like this. Yeah. So at the end, this would update the answer, and I'll return this. So yeah. So this will be. Let me do. Yep. So yeah, this should work actually. All the open, close, and current vector. Yep, everything looks fine now.
Okay. So syntactically everything's right because it's C++, I'm asking you.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Should I try to run it? Or you want to dry run me on some another example?
Oh no, this example was good. If you're confident with your code, you could go ahead and run it on n equal to 2 for now.
Okay. So let's delete number. Okay. Three. Does that mean? Should I reset this? Yeah. So for 3, we said that it should generate 5 strings and all are well formed. This is okay. This is fine. This is wrong. Mm. What is wrong here? If open is less than n, Okay. Plus, that's definitely silly because yeah. So what was happening? Yeah, it was like I was appending it into current, but I didn't delete it so I've already added a open bracket here, and I really don't want it to participate in the state for these conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I missed this thing. So yeah, it should be there. I want
Yeah.
to run it on some other stuff. So
Go
if n
ahead.
is zero, then yeah, I should only terminate here with the base condition. So if n is zero, I should not print anything. Yeah. And for one also, I think should be printed. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we are talking about pairs. Yeah. Into yeah. So yeah, this is working.
Okay. That's great. So, do you want to comment on what the time complexity and space complexity of your code is?
Yeah. So what is happening here? For every time I have um, two options, so it's kind of a mutually exclusive. Like I can either include open bracket or exclude this. Or I mean, or include a closing bracket. So every step I have two possibilities. So I think it should be 2 raised to power n. But yeah, so I think yeah, if we are talking asymptotically, then these should be complexity or runtime complexity. Yep.
Okay.
And it's space-wise. Because this current is specific to that, so this is by value and it will be deleted after every function call, so this will not participate. So this is constant space. My point is I'll have this result vector, so it's will be a size of, it will be proportional to the size result vector. Yep, size of result vector. And do I have something else here? So this is actually to hold the answer. The result. Else, I think they are minor. The minor is some constant. I think if we don't include this in the space complexity analysis, then it's minor. It will be constant time, constant space.
Why constant space?
So result vector. Why? Yeah. Why? So Yeah, you're right. I didn't consider that. Okay, I'll use the function stack space. Like I'll definitely there. So this code would definitely use function stack. And if you consider that, that will, if we consider this in the consideration, then definitely it won't be one. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. We should know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be a
So,
result factor because you can expect that like for this, these 5 different calls should be in the memory, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So that would consume the space. It will be call stack, but yeah, it will consume space.
Okay. So we've got some more time. So I'll just be giving you this next question, and let's see if we get time to code it, or else we could just discuss your approach to it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So so if we could maybe like comment all this code down, if we could do that.
Just looking stuff for me.
Pankaj?
Yep.
Yeah, so if you could just maybe comment all your code
Yeah.
and I'll give you the next problem.
Yep.
Yeah? Okay, so I'm typing up on line 5.
Yep.
So are you familiar with the stack data structure?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So suppose I give you 2 sequences, okay? So I'll call these sequences like a push sequence and a pop sequence. So suppose I have this sequence and another sequence, a pop sequence. And you know how a stack works, right? What they are adding and removing this philosophy is.
Mm-hmm. Is it
It's a
like a stack is like a first in, first out approach? So the last in, first out, LIFO. Yeah.
yeah, last in first out approach. So if I were to give you, 2 sequences like this, say in pushed I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and in popped I had 4, 5, and then maybe a 3, 2, and a 1. So
Mm-hmm.
what has happened here is that I have got the sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by calling push on a specific stack. And I've got 4, 5, 3, 2, 1 as pop when I call pop on a specific stack. So I want you to look at these 2 sequences and tell me if it is really true. If this could have been the result of, this pop push and pop operations on a initially empty stack. The stack is empty in the beginning.
Okay.
So what do you think? Do you think this could have been possible?
Can you give me one example?
Yeah, this one right here.
Yeah.
So
So what should be the result here?
suppose I'm telling you have an empty stack, right?
Yeah.
So I say I call push 1,
Yeah.
okay? Then maybe I say push 2, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And these pop sequences is such that if I were to call pop, I
Uh-huh.
first get a 4. When I call pop next, I get a 5. So
Yeah.
what do you think? What must have had to be pushed first to get a 4?
So
All of
you're
these 4
saying,
numbers?
yeah. So just, sorry to interrupt. So you are asking that I have to arrange these push and pop operations in such a manner that if I pop the element, I should get the result in a given order.
You have to, yes, you have to verify if that's what happened. I
So
could use a sequence like this as well. I might say that push was 1, 2, 3, and pop was 3, 1, 2. Do you think this could have been possible?
uh, so uh, okay. So my question is so they are sequential. Like first, I will push like 5 elements. and then I will pop and then check whether I get them in this particular order or not. Or I can mix the calls like this. I can do, okay, for example, first example, suppose.
No, don't worry about the operations right now. I'm just telling you, if you look at it at a glance, do you think this could have happened? Do you think I could have put now the like push doesn't like it's not necessary that you have to complete all the push operations and only then perform the pop operations. They could be interleaved. You could push first, then pop, or like do all the pushes first and then sequentially pop. So I'm just asking you, in this case it could have happened.
No,
If
it
we
won't
had
happen.
pushed 1, 2, 3, 4 and then we decided to pop, we would have got 4 there, right?
Yeah.
And then if I decided to push 5 and if
Yeah.
I popped, I would have got a 5, right?
Yep.
So by then my stack would have been just like 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. And then if I just kept popping, it would be 3, 2, 1, right?
Yep.
So
But this will
similarly,
not happen here.
yeah, could this
Because,
possibly happen here?
Mhm.
Do you think it could happen?
No, this won't happen because here if you push all 3 elements, so your stack would look like something like this. And if you pop, this is good. Then, but next pop expect 1, but you will always get 2. So yeah,
Yeah.
this
Even
will.
if you didn't push all 1, 2, 3, you still wouldn't get that. So the query is that you'd be given, 2 sequences, and you need to return a true or a false, whether you would be going forward with that. So I don't think we have time to code the problem. So if you could give me some sort of pseudo code as to how you would go
Okay.
about it, that's fine for now.
So what can happen is, you are given, you give me 2 sequences. So one is push sequence, another is pop sequence.
Yeah, consider them two lists of integers.
Sure. Yeah. So what I can do is I can use a pop sequence pointer. So suppose it's a list and I can start with 0th index and then first and second. These are the positions, indexes. And I know at my first pop, I want this some particular element to be out of the stack. So what I can do, I can just use a push sequence and push elements until I get that element, because the last pushed element would be the first pop element. So if I just normal, if I loop over the sequence and see, okay, now after at some ith index, I said, okay, this is the element which I am looking to pop out, then I'll stop and then I will move my pointer in the pop sequence. I say, okay, this element is out, then look for 1. So if it is equal to top, then we can just delete this. I mean, we can also remove this from stack, else we can continue pushing rest of the sequence. And if at the end, if my stack is not empty, that means it's not possible. The 2 sequences are not compatible.
Okay, so you're saying you will use a stack data structure and actually perform it and check for it. You will basically
Not necessarily stack actually. So point is, we are talking about here some pointer manipulations. So what I can do is, suppose you give me 2 vectors. Say this is push vector and this is pop. So I can do some initial validations that both size of these 2 vectors should be same, else I'll straightway say, oh, it's not possible.
yeah,
So
correct.
first condition can be, would be push dot size must hold equal to dot size. Okay, if not, false. Right.
Okay.
Second can be, I can take 2 variables I and j equals 0. And of course, I suppose size is something which is equal to the size of the list. And here what I can do, I'll check for, okay, so point is I have to use all my, so both the pointers should reach at the end. So you will continue while I is less than Z. So at the end, you have both the index, both the integers should reach at the end. And here I can do, so I have to move my push according to the pop pointer. So
Okay, so I'm mostly getting what you're saying. You're saying that you would keep pushing, and if you ever see a match with pop, then you would pop.
yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay,
but in that case, no, I see that problem here. If I only use the variables, then what will happen at some stage? It may happen that okay, the 3 matches. Then okay, I know this matches, but I need to insert more elements. So it's something like this, and then I start popping it. So what I can do, I think, if I use stack, it will be easier for implementation. So yeah, if you ask me, I can do it. Like it would be like a difficult implementation, and it's difficult to write it in interview. Yeah, I will then for my convenience, I will use a stack. Yeah, I'll go with stack, and I'll use some space.
Perfectly right. Perfectly right. Yeah. Okay, good. So I just wanted to check your approach to this. I think we can proceed to the feedback stage. Okay. So, Pankaj, would you first tell me how you felt the process went? How did you perform in the interview?
Yeah, so I think I like the process. Like it was easy to set up interviews. I received all the links in here. And regarding interview, I was like, I made like a couple of mistakes. I can be more careful for my next interviews, especially like in the dry run also, I didn't catch this line. Yeah, this is bad, but yeah, it may happen. But yeah, I think the only thing is I should need to be more careful next time while writing code.
Okay. And all right. So I'll give you your feedback then. So from a coding perspective, your requirement gathering was really, really good. You confirmed with me before you proceeded to come up with examples. You asked me a lot of questions, especially in the stack question as well. You did ask me, if I'll be performing the operations or whatever. So I found that was really good because your requirement gathering was so good. There wasn't any issue of, edge test cases where you might, not come up with some where you might be caught in this thing. For example, a stack problem, you said you would check that both are of equal length and stuff. Moving onwards to problem solving. So in the first problem, you got the most optimal solution at once. You didn't even need to go through a brute force solution. So that was pretty good in my opinion. And that would obviously help you when you're solving problems. In coding skills, I believe you coded it up quickly. I'm not really familiar with C++, but yeah, you did come into that issue where you had to like backtrack and remove that element. So maybe you could have used a string literal, like directly added the parentheses in the function call instead of maybe using a variable. But other than that, you coded pretty quickly, that we even had time for a second question. So that's pretty good. And, it shows that you do have a command over the language. In terms of testing, your testing was phenomenal. You actually, almost built a recursion tree, with like generate like the function calls the way they would be called and all. That was very, very good. In terms of time complexity, so the first problem, the parentheses problem, the time complexity is actually not really easy to calculate unless you're a mathematician, but you did come close enough. You did say that, yeah, it would be, slightly exponential because of the tree. In terms of space complexity, also, when you said it would be, O of n, like the amount of space where you'll be storing the result, That's right, but you missed one point, of that the space complexity. That's actually a very common this thing because we think recursion and we think over one space, but there's actually the function called stack. But yet again, you came up with it. You realized a minute later and you said yes, that's there. So I feel coding wise, you were pretty good. And also your thought process, you were always communicating even when you were coding, you were talking out loud. That's actually good because I don't really know C++, but I did have a pretty good idea what you are coding. In terms of behavioral skills, when I asked you about your proudest accomplishment, maybe you could, actually give your interviewer an actual incident where, you did something. So there's this thing called like the star format, which you could follow maybe, where you describe a situation, you tell me what was your task, what was the action you followed, and then what was the result. So that is, some qualitative, quantitative details with this thing because you've been working for 5 years. You've definitely come across a lot of complex tasks that you must have resolved or had to brainstorm over. And yeah, overall it was pretty good. And also in the language thing, the ranking, so I'm pretty sure you must be much greater than 5 on 10, but you could maybe try and be a bit specific. Like there's this, like afterwards you did mention that there were changes to the threading libraries in C++. You could maybe also state the next time that, there's this so and so thing which has been coming up and I want to master it in the future. But overall it was a really good interview, I feel. And even with the stack question, you did come up with the optimal answer pretty soon and which correct data structure to use. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
So
and if you ask me, like, you were also like communicating your questions were clear, and yeah, I mean, if there was some vague question, then yeah, it is required to ask questions. So yeah, so and the selection of questions is also good. I liked. So thanks.
okay, thank you. It was my first time interviewing. Thank you.
Thank you, Becca and Pankaj. So it was a great interview. Thanks for sharing the feedback as well. So others, can you please share the feedback about the interviewer and the interviewee?
Yeah, I mean, I can probably say.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So in the beginning about the behavior question, be more confident. I think when you said 5 out of 10, it didn't seem confident, and I think that's what interviewers are looking for, like your confidence. Okay, I know this. Even though not everybody's perfect, not everybody can know everything, but if you're confident, if you sound confident about it, the interviewer is gonna look at you like you do know your stuff. That's one thing. Okay. There's other stuff like you asked for the clarification of the problem. You discussed about edge cases. You gave example of the output, how it's gonna be, and then you walked through the steps that you're gonna go to solve the problem. That was good. Now, one thing is that maybe in the beginning you can ask about any constraints. Maybe they don't want to spend a lot of space. Maybe they just want to do it, in place. I'm not talking about specifically about this problem, but let's say other problem, or they give you a time constraint. So it's better to ask about it so that they're gonna be like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, let's see what you come up with. Or they can be like, I want this to be solved in O of one space, or I want this to be solved in, linear time. And so in that case, you know what kind of approach you need to take in order to solve this problem. You can't go, for example, with quadratic solution. Maybe you can discuss about it. So you can also discuss about, brute force. You don't have to go brute force if you already in your mind kind of like found the solution that's going to be better than brute force. You can say, I can do this brute force by doing these steps, and it's going to be this complexity, but let me try to see if I can find a better solution, So, and then you can continue discussing how you come up with that solution. Now, besides that, when you started, writing the code, you had kind of like long pauses. What I would do is, as you're writing, you're gonna say, oh, I'm creating a, helper function now. I'm gonna put 2, 3 integers as an input, like open, close, and like as you're writing, just talk about it. Because sometimes, you know, while you talk and while you write these if conditions and how you drilling down the recursion, sometimes when you write it down and you say it, and then if you hear it how you say it, sometimes you're like, oh, okay, this doesn't make sense. So let me see if I can let me see where I did the mistake, you know, because if you say it, you kind of like subconsciously you're listening to it, and you might find kind of like error in your way of thinking. So yeah, you had a couple long pauses, but I mean that doesn't stop you from solving the problem. I'm just saying that I think interviewer appreciate more if you kind of like, you know, guide them through, like tell them a story, you know, like as you go writing the code. So I like that you went on and tested what you wrote, and at the end that you answered the question about the runtime complexity. But again, you can mention that in the beginning so that the interviewer is like, oh, okay, this guy thinks about, you know, the complexity, the space and time, that he's trying to find a solution that will, you know, be within those constraints. And about the problem too, I mean, we had less time, but you discussed how you're gonna solve it, so that was good. So yeah, that's my feedback.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Martino. Thanks for the feedback. So I hope it was useful. Others,
Yeah.
anybody else? Does anyone has any Okay, I think there are no more feedbacks. Okay.
Hey, this is Vivek. Just
Sorry,
wanted to have
sorry.
like a quick,
My
quick,
net was missing. Okay.
quick
Yeah,
feedback.
yeah, Vivek, continue.
Yeah, I think the only feedback I had was I think overall Becca's feedback is spot on, so that's actually great. The only thing I'd have, I think, for Pankaj to focus on is I was a little underwhelmed by the thoroughness in the testing. I mean, the testing piece was thorough, but I think there's an element of disconnection that I didn't see. Usually, you're supposed to, like, you know, don't test the code that you think you wrote, test the code that is actually there. So you shouldn't be skipping across things. Like, for example, when you were testing, you should have caught that line 71, for example, where you're doing a current plus equals this, you're actually modifying the current string. And that when you go later, the current string would have been modified already, right? So that stuff you should have caught on your own and not wait for the computer to run it and then tell you, right? So that part normally would, because you automatically assume that current was whatever, and then you just made that assumption. So I think a little bit more like, you know, thoroughness in testing would benefit you is one thing. So that was the feedback I had on top of everything else. I mean, I think it's definitely good stuff. Your code was reasonably spot on. You had the algorithm in place. Your thoroughness was actually well called out. Feedback on that thing, as Martin has said, as you're not, like, you know, being confident about your why it's a number, why or 5 or a 6 or a 7, and what does it take to get to the next level. I think it's yeah, you need to be a little bit more confident there. That's the piece there. Specifically for Becca, I think one of the feedbacks that I would actually have is usually try not to go for a Q2 or a question 2 in this case. If you have the time, then you would just go and like, you know, deal with like question 1 itself and a little bit more, like, you know, extend it further, or to some extent, you know, say how would you do it iteratively or things like that. So you can have a little bit more discussion on that, and that might be another way of looking at it. So like starting a completely brand new question would be hard, because, you know, the context switching and everything is a little difficult. So from an interviewer's perspective, I would not be, you know, I wouldn't start a new question just because I have time. I would just take the same question and then I would just probably add some more complexifiers to that, and that's probably the right way to do it. Unless, of course, like, there are a few companies where running like 2 interview questions is the norm, in which case you plan it accordingly, right? You start from the get-go, you have a plan of running 2 interview questions, which is different. So yeah, those are my comments.
Sure,
Thanks,
you.
Vivek.
So, like, regarding it, only just one question, right? So, will it be better if we have one very easy question and one medium question? That will be easier, like, because sometimes the question might be too hard for the person, so we can't know the level, right? So after one easy question, it should be we should be able to, like, interview will be able to know the level of interviewer, right?
Yeah, so this specific question, right, the way I have planned this question usually is the very first question will be to, given a string, tell me if that if it's a valid parenthesis. That will be the first question, which is like a very simple stack thing. You should be able to solve that in a minute or two. Once you do that, then the next thing will be like, generate all valid combinations. So that would be like my follow-up question. So the first question doesn't really take much time, and it helps us put that conversation in perspective in terms of what we want to do. If the candidate is not good enough, or it's somewhat in some shaky ground, then I would take the question in a different direction where validate parenthesis, but different types of parenthesis. Like you may have like, open bracket, square bracket, and flower bracket and all that. And how would you do it? So that is actually a simpler question, and it's not this generate question, right? So there are a few different ways you can go. Just having that game plan mapped out upfront would be useful. So it's helpful to have like a simple question, because maybe not everybody is as good as Pankaj was. And if that happens, then you really don't want to give them like a super complex question and watch them stumble through the whole thing, right? That's not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah,
Thanks for the
Thank you,
feedback.
as Vivek said, I think that for this problem, for example, in the beginning, you could have asked him how many different combinations could it be from these open and close, and then once he solves that, like, okay, how would you display now can you now print them instead of just returning how many, right? That's one valid option to go. So
Okay.
No. So thanks, Martino.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys. Thanks for the
no problem.
feedback, and yeah, I'll like keep this in mind for next time. Thanks.
thanks, Martino. So anyone else has any feedback? So can we stop the recording? Yeah, I think there are no more feedbacks. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.